Dear students, as you know that in the previous lecture we have discussed the meaning of disarmament, the various efforts which has been made in history for this disarmament, as well as we have discussed the challenges which this process of disarmament faces. Dear students, in today's lecture we are going to explain the role of the United Nations in disarmament. As you know that the main aim of UN is to maintain international peace and security. Even the very idea of UN is to save the succeeding generations from the scourge of war. To achieve this objective of peace, disarmament is very important. To achieve disarmament, the UN Charter contains many principles to guide, to regulate state behavior, such as peaceful settlement of disputes, refraining from the threat or use of force, which are very essential for achieving disarmament objectives. Dear students, first let's have a look at the UN Charter's provisions for disarmament. Dear students, there are at least 3 articles in the UN Charter which has been devoted to secure disarmament. Article 11 of the UN Charter outlines the functions of the General Assembly regarding matters of disarmament and peacekeeping. It says the General Assembly may consider the principles governing disarmament and the regulation of armaments and may make recommendations with regard to such principles to the members or to the Security Council or to both. So, Article 11 gives power to the General Assembly to address, to make recommendations on matters related to disarmament, regulation of armaments and the maintenance of international peace and security. Another article is Article 25. Article 25 of the UN Charter pertains to the authority of the Security Council in matters of international peace and security. It says the members of the United Nations have to agree to accept and carry out the decisions of the Security Council in accordance with the present Charter. Article 25 establishes the binding nature of the decisions made by the Security Council. So, it means that member states are obligated to comply with the decisions of the Security Council regarding disarmament and other matters which are related to the international peace and security. The last article is Article 47. Article 47 of the UN Charter talks about the establishment of a military staff committee. It says there shall be a military staff committee to advise and assist the Security Council on all questions relating to the Security Council's military requirements for the maintenance of international peace and security, the employment and command of forces placed at its disposal, the regulation of armaments and possible disarmament. So, Article 47 establishes the Military Staff Committee to provide advice, to provide assistance to the Security Council on matters related to military requirements, including disarmament and the regulation of armaments. So, dear students, these 3 articles of the UN Charter collectively highlight the roles and responsibilities of the General Assembly, the Security Council and the Military Staff Committee in addressing disarmament, in maintaining international peace and security. Now, dear students, we will try to understand the role of UN in promoting disarmament. Dear students, United Nations plays a crucial role in promoting arms control and non-proliferation efforts worldwide, aiming to prevent the spread of weapons and reduce the risk of armed conflict. To promote disarmament, the United Nations convene multilateral forums and conferences. It means the United Nations convenes multilateral forums and conferences as part of its efforts to promote disarmament globally. These forums provide opportunities for member states to come together, to exchange views, to negotiate agreements, and to advance collective action on disarmament issues. For example, there is a conference on disarmament. This conference on disarmament was established in 1979. This conference on disarmament is the primary multilateral forum for negotiating arms control and disarmament agreements. For example, it negotiated the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty (CTBT) in 1996. This treaty bans all nuclear explosions for both military and civilian purposes, therefore contributes to global efforts to prevent nuclear proliferation and reduce nuclear testing. Another important committee is United Nations Disarmament Commission. This commission was established in 1978. The UN Disarmament Commission serves as a deliberative body that makes the recommendations to the UN General Assembly on disarmament issues. So, this commission addresses issues related to nuclear disarmament, conventional weapons, and regional disarmament in various sessions, therefore contribute to the development of disarmament norms and principles. Another committee is First Committee of the UN General Assembly. The First Committee is one of the 6 main committees of the UN General Assembly, which focus on disarmament and international security issues. It adopts resolutions on a wide range of disarmament topics such as nuclear disarmament, conventional arms control, and disarmament education. Therefore, shapes the disarmament agenda of the UN and guide member states' actions. United Nations also organizes high-level meetings and summits on disarmament issues. Therefore, bring together heads of state, government officials, and diplomats to discuss key challenges and priorities. For example, the UN Secretary General's High-Level Conference on Disarmament held in 2018. This conference provided a platform to leaders to reaffirm their commitment to nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation, therefore generating momentum for future disarmament efforts. The UN also supports regional and thematic conferences on disarmament issues. For example, the UN Regional Center for Peace and Disarmament organizes workshops, seminars on arms control, small arms and light weapons, and conflict prevention in various regions, therefore promote dialogue and cooperation among states. So, dear students, convening multilateral forums and conferences are an important aspect of the UN's efforts to promote disarmament globally. These platforms provide opportunities for member states to engage in dialogue, negotiate agreements, and advance collective action towards achieving a world free from the threat of weapons of mass destruction. Next is negotiating and implementing international treaties and conventions. It means that UN also supports the negotiation and implementation of international treaties and conventions aimed at controlling the proliferation of weapons and regulating arms trade. For example, the Arms Trade Treaty, which was negotiated under UN, establishes common international standards for the import, export, and transfer of conventional weapons to prevent their illicit proliferation and misuse. The UN also works to strengthen compliance with existing arms control and non-proliferation agreements through monitoring, verification and enforcement mechanisms. For example, the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is a specialized UN agency, it conducts inspections and safeguards to verify compliance with nuclear non-proliferation agreements such as Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons (NPT). The United Nations also supports for disarmament and confidence building measures to reduce tensions and promote stability in regions which are prone to conflicts and arms race. For example, the UN Regional Center for Peace and Disarmament, which is located in different regions around the world. This regional center offers technical assistance, training and capacity building support to member states in implementing disarmament and confidence building measures. The United Nations also promotes transparency and information sharing among member states regarding their arms control and non-proliferation efforts, therefore try to promote mutual trust and confidence. For example, the UN Register of Conventional Arms collects and disseminates data on member states' arms imports and exports, therefore promotes transparency and accountability in conventional arms transfer. Dear students, United Nations also engages civil society organizations and non-governmental organizations in arms control and non-proliferation efforts. It uses its expertise and advocacy to promote disarmament goals. For example, the UN Institute for Disarmament Research collaborates with NGOs, academic institutions and think tanks to conduct research and analysis on arms control and disarmament issues, therefore contribute to evidence-based policy making. So dear students, by promoting arms control and non-proliferation efforts, the United Nations plays an important role in advancing global peace and security by preventing the spread of nuclear weapons. Now we will look at the successes and failures of UN's disarmament efforts. First, successes of the UN disarmament initiatives. Successes of UN disarmament initiatives are like these. Efforts led to the reduction in nuclear weapons stockpiles. For example, the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, which was signed between the USA and Russia, this treaty led to significant reductions in their nuclear arsenals. Therefore, we can say that this treaty made contribution to global efforts towards nuclear disarmament. These disarmament efforts also led to the destruction of chemical weapons. For example, the Chemical Weapons Convention facilitated the destruction of vast quantities of chemical weapons, including those in countries like in Syria, Libya and Iraq, therefore enhance global security. These disarmament efforts also led to non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. For example, the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons has been successful in preventing the proliferation of nuclear weapons to non-nuclear states, therefore maintain the global non-proliferation regime. Arms trade regulation. For example, the Arms Trade Treaty establishes common international standards for the import, export and transfer of conventional weapons, Therefore, this treaty helps to reduce the illicit armor trade and prevent arms diversion to unauthorized recipients. Peacekeeping and disarmament programs means these disarmament efforts also led to peacekeeping and disarmament programs. For example, UN peacekeeping missions such as those in Kosovo have facilitated disarmament, demobilization and reintegration programs, therefore led to the collection and destruction of weapons in post-conflict societies. Now we are going to discuss the failures and challenges of disarmament initiatives. First, we will discuss failures of UN disarmament initiatives. Non-compliance with treaties. Despite commitments under the NPT, some countries have pursued nuclear weapons program or some countries has withdrawn from the treaty. Therefore, this non-compliance undermined efforts towards nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. Arms proliferation by non-state actors. For example, non-state actors such as terrorist groups continue to acquire and use small arms, light weapons and other conventional weapons. Therefore, these non-state actors also pose challenge to disarmament efforts and global security. Geopolitical tensions and conflicts means geopolitical tensions and conflicts such as those in Middle East and East Asia also prevent progress on disarmament initiatives and perpetuate the arms race, therefore resulted into increase in militarization and instability. Lack of universal participation means not all countries are party to key disarmament treaties like NPT, CTBT. Therefore, this also creates gaps in the non-proliferation regimes. Emerging threats and technologies. For example, the rapid advancements in technology including cyber weapons and autonomous weapons systems pose new challenges to disarmament and arms control. Therefore, requires innovative approaches and multilateral cooperation. So, dear students, it is now clear from our discussion that while notable achievements have been made in reducing weapons stockpiles and regulating arms trade, however, persistent challenges remain such as non-compliance, arms proliferation and geopolitical tensions, which highlight the ongoing need for collective action and commitment to achieve a world free from the threat of weapons of mass destruction. Dear students, now we are going to discuss future prospects and some recommendations for this process of disarmament. First we will discuss future prospects. As you know that advancements in technology such as satellite imagery, blockchain and artificial intelligence hold promise for enhancing verification and monitoring mechanisms in disarmament efforts. Multilateral diplomacy means strengthening multilateralism and promoting greater cooperation among member states will be very crucial for overcoming challenges and advancing disarmament objectives. Another is engaging youth in disarmament education, awareness raising campaigns and advocacy efforts. These can empower the next generation to become champions for peace and disarmament. Addressing emerging threats means anticipating and addressing emerging threats like cyber weapons, autonomous weapons system and biotechnologies will require proactive measures and international cooperation. Now we will look at some recommendations which can be useful for this process of disarmament. First recommendation is that member states should reaffirm their commitment to existing disarmament treaties and conventions. They should strengthen compliance mechanisms and address challenges to their implementation. In order to promote transparency and information sharing among member states regarding their arms, military spending and disarmament efforts can build mutual trust and confidence. Allocating resources for disarmament education programs, capacity building initiatives and technical assistance can enhance states' capabilities to fulfill their disarmament obligations effectively. Another recommendation is to embrace inclusive and gender-sensitive approaches to disarmament. Therefore, to ensure the meaningful participation of women, youth and marginalized groups in decision-making processes, it can promote more sustainable and equitable disarmament outcomes. Recommendation is to encourage regional and sub-regional cooperation on disarmament issues, which can include taking confidence-building measures and arms control agreements. These can address regional challenges and contribute to global peace and security. By embracing these future prospects and recommendations, the international community can work towards achieving a world free from the threat of weapons of mass destruction and arms control, where peace, security and disarmament prevails. Students, in today's lecture we have seen that the United Nations' role in disarmament is important for achieving its goal of maintaining international peace and security. Through the provisions outlined in the UN Charter and the implementation of various initiatives and treaties, the UN has made significant contribution in reducing weapons stockpiles, in regulating arms trade and promoting non-proliferation efforts. However, persistent challenges such as non-compliance, arms proliferation and geopolitical tensions underscore the ongoing need for collective action and commitment from member states. Looking ahead, embracing technological innovations, strengthening multilateral diplomacy, engaging youth and adopting inclusive approaches are essential for addressing emerging threats and advancing disarmament objectives. By following these recommendations and working collaboratively, the international community can pave the way towards a safer and more peaceful world, free from the scourge of war and weapons of mass destruction. Thank you.